Hello, everyone, and a warm welcome to the Women in Water special event on Women in Science for Water and Society. I'm Andrea Rowe, the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Specialist at the Global Institute for Water Security and Global Water Futures at the University of Saskatchewan. I want to begin today by acknowledging that we are all participating from the traditional territories of First Peoples across this country. The University of Saskatchewan is located on Treaty 6 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis. All of us are meeting here today from different places within and outside of Canada to talk about water. Water is the lifeblood of people and societies, connecting us to each other. Wherever you are, please take a moment to acknowledge the Indigenous heritage of the lands where you live and work. We pay our respect to the Indigenous ancestors of these lands and waters, and reaffirm our relationships with each other and our desire to have a productive and positive discussion today. Before we begin, I'd like to begin with a few quick logistics notes. You are able to, if you would like to listen to with using closed captioning today, that is available by pressing on the closed captioning button in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. In addition, French interpretation will become available, and you can access that by pressing the globe-shaped interpretation button. The event will be approximately 1 hour in length, and you will be asked to remain muted during that time, but you will be invited to ask questions. And so you can submit your questions throughout the discussion through the Q&A function, and I will take the opportunity to pose those to our guests and host at the end through a moderated question period in the last 10 minutes. I would also like to recognize our sponsors, the Global Water Futures Research Network, the Global Water Futures Young Professionals, and the Global Institute for Water Security for committing the many resources needed to make this series a reality. And in particular, I would like to acknowledge today our virtual audience, many of whom have attended this series throughout the last 5 years, who have participated in the series, making it what it is today, as hosts, as guests, and as attendees. If you have not already added your name to the expression of interest for the Women in Water expert list, that has been possible by registering for each one of the lectures this season. There's also an independent link available on the Global Water Futures website. We strongly encourage you to express your interest there, and we'll be in touch with more information about the specifics of this in the spring of 2022. And so before we begin, I would just like to take a moment to reflect on the 2022 Women in Water lecture series. We began in January with a discussion of transborder collaboration and high mountain water. And the series concluded in March with the discussion of groundwater and making the invisible visible, completing an arc from water in the highest mountains to the lowest depths inside the earth. In between, we discussed rural water and food security and innovations in watershed management, all while considering the gendered impacts of water research. The outstanding speakers and hosts drew our collective attention towards a better understanding of the relationship between traditional Indigenous knowledge and modern science, both necessary to solve pressing climate challenges. What touched my heart was the wisdom shared by Michaela Carriere in Lecture 2, that we must build a personal relationship with water if we are to understand it and to protect it. I hope this series has helped you to not only pique your interest in deepening your relationship with water, but also in building a global community that is dedicated to addressing pressing social, economic, and environmental challenges by better understanding water, our relationship to it, and to each other. With that in mind, it's my pleasure to introduce our host and the founder of the Women in Water lecture series, Dr. Corin Schuster-Wallace. Dr. Corin Schuster-Wallace is an associate professor in the Department of Geography and Planning at the University of Saskatchewan and associate director of the Global Water Futures Research Network and founder of the Women in Water lecture series. Dr. Schuster-Wallace is a contributor to the recently released 2022 IPCC Climate Report on Impacts, Adaptation, and Vulnerability. Corin is a water health researcher and has a broad experience in the water health nexus using a coupled systems approach. This includes environmental change, impacts on human health, well-being, and sustainable development. Corin previously worked for the United Nations University, her primary role being the establishment of a water health research platform. Prior to this, Corin has worked with the Public Health Agency of Canada, as was a consultant on part 2 of the Walkerton Inquiry. With that, I'll hand it over to Corin to introduce our esteemed guests for today. Thank you, Corin.
Thank you, Andrea, and welcome everyone. It is my great pleasure today to introduce Her Royal Highness Princess Dr. Nisreen El Hashmite, the Executive Director of the Royal Academy of Science International Trust. Her Royal Highness Dr. Nisreen is the first academic professional and CEO of a non-governmental organization credited with creating a United Nations International Day. From drafting and introducing the resolution to successful lobbying, as a result of her efforts, the UN designated February 11th as International Day of Women and Girls in Science. In 2018, Her Highness Dr. Nisreen launched the first Girls in Science for SDGs international platform that provides scholarships, support, and opportunities for more than 1,500 girls around the world to fulfill their dreams in science. In the same year, Her Highness launched the Capital Fund for Women and Girls in Science and the Women in Science for Water. In 2016, she founded an international campaign for science in diplomacy, followed by a movement of women in science in diplomacy, which has led to the appointment of more women in science in diplomatic and senior governmental positions. Her Highness Dr. Nisreen has also worked closely with the United Nations on achieving the Millennium Development Goals prior to 2015, and now the Sustainable Development Goals. And she established the World Women's Health and Development Forum as a center of excellence to improve women's health, and is the founder of the Women in Science International League. Alice Bouwman-Dentner is a friend and colleague who graduated as a biologist ethologist from Utrecht University in the Netherlands. In the course of her truly international career, she has developed a focus on water governance, social inclusion, and gender. Alice has served on a variety of boards and committees, amongst others as chair of the European Water Stewardship Members Council and chair ad interim of the Global Water Partnership Intergovernmental Organization. She's the honorary founding president of the Women for Water Partnership, which is how I first met and started working with Alice. She's also co-founder of Chansu Global, vice president of the Water Research and Training Center International Foundation, member of the International Steering Committee for the Young Water Solutions Fellowship Program, and member of the International Advisory Committee of the Dushanbe process in support of the Water Action Decade from 2018 to 2028, which is the second Water Action Decade, and she was heavily involved in the first one too. She's also a long-standing member of the Advisory Board of Gender Concerns International, and in her spare time, what little areas she hangs out with her grandchildren. I know she's very proud of them. Alice was proclaimed Action Hero of the UN Water for Life Decade in 2015 and Knight of the Order of Orange Nassau in April 2016. She's also the first laureate of His Royal Highness Prince Mohammed bin King Faisal I El Hashmite Award. And so I'm really looking forward to both of these talks and the conversation that we have afterwards. So Your Highness Dr. Nisreen, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Corin. Esteemed colleagues, I would like to start by expressing my sincere thanks and appreciation to Dr. Corin Schuster-Wallace, and also for our colleague, Dr. Andrea Rowe, for giving me the opportunity to join you today. Dr. Corin, I'm so grateful, and I will start now. I'm so grateful to join you today from London, and also for giving me this opportunity to speak about an important issue that is close to my parents' hearts and my heart as well. Colleagues, in 1968, the founder of the Royal Academy of Science International Trust, the late His Royal Highness Prince Mohammed bin King Faisal I Al Hashimite of Iraq, wrote on the first page of Razet's constitution, and I quote, "Empowering and advancing women gives wealth and power to society. Therefore, all sustainable development plans and policies, whether in the short or long term, should focus on the talents and expertise of women." The Royal Academy of Science International Trust was signed into being on 17th of April 1968 by Prince Mohammed Al Hashimi to create equality, diversity, and inclusion in science, technology, and innovation, and to strengthen the influence of science on society's sustainable development programs. Colleagues, the theme of our meeting today is Women in Science for Water and Society. Well, we all know that UN reports point out that billions of people around the world will be unable to access safely managed household drinking water, sanitation, and hygiene services in 2030 unless progress rate quadruple. Rising demand, poor management, and failure to conserve water resources compounded by climate change represent key challenges, urgently requiring a new sustainable, holistic approach to support aligning strategies on water. Razet has been successful in mobilizing concreted actions in different disciplines, including its program Jansu Global, which was originated as a pledge of Razet to contribute its knowledge, influence, and expertise to the United Nations Water for Sustainable Development Action Decade. And I just would like to mention here the name Jansu is originated from Anatolia. In Anatolian and Arabic culture, women are considered the source of water, the source of life, like water. And the name Jansu means water is life. So this is why our program is named Jansu. Jansu Global is built on the understanding that transdisciplinary science and research that looks at development issues holistically and through a water lens is the main driver for sustainable and equitable development. Well, for more than 53 years in Razet, we have been working earnestly and diligently to accomplish equality in science, as well as to strengthen the role that women can play as agents in socio-economic sustainable development. And this is translated in the UN General Assembly Resolution 70/212, proclaiming February 11 the International Day of Women and Girls in Science, which Razet and the government of Malta facilitated. Since then, Razet continued to has been working with member state, UN intergovernmental organization, as well as civil society and academia to contribute to the achievements of equality in science, in line with the 2030 agenda and its SDGs. The 7th International Day of Women and Girls in Science Assembly, held virtually last February at the UN headquarters, brought together women in science and experts from around the world, high-level government officials, representatives of international organizations, and private sector to discuss the water nexus in achieving the 3 pillars of sustainable development, namely economic prosperity, social justice, and environmental integrity. The 7th Assembly promoted and strengthened the engagement of women in the fields of water science and technology, incorporated social aspects and cultural insights, and urged government to investing in women and girls as fundamental means and agents for solving water challenges. During the event, women in all fields of sciences showcased best practices, strategies, applied solutions, and experiences in addressing water challenges and opportunities. And Dr. Corinne was one of the distinguished guests who enlightened as well this event with her experience. The need and necessity of women in science for water and society is clearly attained in the commitment of the international community through the 7th International Day of Women and Girls in Science Outcome document, which was endorsed by 53 member states, the European Union, and the African Union. The outcome document indicates in its paragraphs, and I will quote some paragraphs. Welcoming Jansu and Jansu Global Capital Fund established by Razed to contribute to the implementation of SDG 6. Jansu also welcoming the Jansu Science Innovation Transformation and Education, which is in brief Jansu Site, International Platform Initiative, and other Razed initiatives aimed at supporting, promoting, empowering all women and girls in science. Urge member states to engage women and girls in science in national, regional, and international dialogue involving all innovation system actors, focusing on the relationship between water innovation and research, economic growth and society at large, and exploring the move from science, technology, and innovation policy to policy for equity, diversity, and inclusion in science, technology, and innovation. Commit to support and encourage the full, equal, meaningful involvement and participation of women and girls in science, technology, and innovation for water security management and sustainable development, and acknowledge their contributions and potential as agents of change. Encourage member states, intergovernmental organizations, private sector, civil society, and other stakeholders to cooperate with Razed and Jansu Site International Platform Initiative, Jansu Global, and the Jansu Global Capital Fund. Further, encourage member states to involve women and girls in science with disabilities and to enable them as agents of change and beneficiaries in all stages of sustainable development cycle, programs, and decision-making. Invite member states to include science-based water strategies into national economic and infrastructure plans and place equity, diversity, and inclusion at the center of water policies, programs, services, and integrated water resources management to ensure that water remains available, accessible, and affordable for all, including for all women and girls who face multiple and intersecting forms of discrimination. Further, call upon member states to invest in equity, diversity, and inclusion in water sciences for inclusive green growth in national, regional, international development agendas. Encourage forthcoming conferences of the United Nations, as well as other global forums and efforts for sustainability to take into consideration the critical roles of women and girls in science, technology, and innovation in explaining and responding to global challenges, including as related to water. Well, I think we did our bit and we get the international commitment, and now it is more than ever women voices for water and society is heard and will always shine for water solutions. Well, dear colleagues, while women and men in science are working to engineering solutions that will enable transformational impact, we need to move beyond basic water advocacy approaches and popularization of the water challenges and possible solutions. We need to connect the dots, starting by looking within ourselves to rediscover our own stories with water, personal and professional. My parents taught me to respect water, which, like women, is the source of life. Don't waste water, don't pollute it, don't disturb its journey through nature, they always said. My mother taught me the history of water and civilization, telling me that the journey of humanity started with water. And my father, Prince Muhammad, taught me that science, like water, represents equality. Colleagues, if we look within ourselves, we can find our very own personal connection and story with the water. This connection will teach us how to value the source of life, water, and women. These principles have guided me throughout my career in science and medicine, and my contributions to the equitable and sustainable development cause. They also shaped my leadership in RASIT, which resulted in the Jansu Global Proposition presented at the 7th International Day of Women and Girls in Science Assembly. Dear colleagues, water and peace, every human's rights are the biggest challenge facing humanity. I would like to leave you with this. With water, the journey of humanity started, as my mother said. And I would like to say, our joint water journey for human well-being, environmental integrity, and peace will start from today. Let's say water unites us. Thank you very much.
Thank you ever so much, Your Highness, for those inspiring words. Really appreciated and look forward to coming back in the question period to talk a little bit more about some of your ideas and solutions. And in the meantime, I'll hand the floor over to Alice to share her presentation with us. Thank you very much, Alice. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm very untechnical, so let me try and see how I can play from start. I think that should do it, right? Yes, is this okay? You see my presentation, right? Well, first of all, I thank the Global Water Futures Program, its Young Professional Network, and the Global Institute for Water Security for inviting us to speak at this special session of the Women and Water Lecture Series. In preparation for this, I've been listening to some of the previous lectures. I would have loved to cover them all, but there were too many. But I'm sure I will get back to them when I touch upon a specific subject. But I really want to commend the organizers of this inspiring initiative and commend all participants for their meaningful contributions to this topic, which is very dear to my heart. Let me also congratulate the Global Water Futures team with the impressive results in uniting women scientists from different disciplines on addressing the water and gender nexus. It's really impressive. Now into the substance of this all. For me, while the lectures cover different aspects of the complex water-gender development nexus, there is this common thread. Dr. Maureen Reed, I was seeing, said in the second lecture on climate change and society that gender norms shape the roles of women in households, workplaces, and communities. And Dr. Cohen and many others have demonstrated to us how women in their different social roles act as agents of change towards water security and sustainable and equitable development. I share with them the view that the meaningful involvement of women in their specific gender roles is important to ensure gender-sensitive policies and programs. Gender sensitivity and women inclusiveness contribute to a more just and prosperous society that leaves no one behind. So these are the two coins for me of the same goal. And this has been for me the common thread since I started working on women and water back in 1998 as a women's representative in the delegation of the Netherlands to the United Nations General Assembly. And it has been the driver behind the Dushanbe Women Water Forums that I have had the pleasure of helping to organize after the Women Water for Life decade was established. Now, when I was asked to look at or to say something about the Dushanbe, the upcoming Dushanbe Women Water Forum, I thought I best place it in the historical context. Because since the United Nations started to address this predicament that that there is no access for many to water and sanitation, we have seen emerging three water decades. First of all, the International Drinking Water and Supply and Sanitation decade of the 1980s, which actually set out to have universal access by the year 1990, which of course was a bit very overambitious. And then secondly, we had the Water for Life decades, which was spearheaded by Tajikistan, the resolution, which is the International Decade of Action, Water for Life. And the third one is now currently in progress. We are approaching the midterm review of the International Decade for Action, Water for Sustainable Development. This first Water Action Decade there was, during the course of this decade, there was an increasing recognition that the traditional supply-driven and top-down water provision was not going to achieve the universal access. And that for communities to gain sustainable access, their women needed to be involved. I mean, we have seen in the previous lecture series many examples of how this works, but internationally this was also recognized. However, if we then look at how this first decade was evaluated, it was clear that the women's involvement in decision-making, oh, I did something wrong, just excuse me. For effective community participation had neither been systematically pursued nor applied, but is at best pursued as an ad hoc basis. So the principles were there, but the practice was still lacking. And this has, I think, prompted the second decade to include a specific goal on ensuring the participation of women in water-related development efforts. And this basically has also been the cause, the reason why this Women Water Fora became to life. I remember being invited to the first international high-level conference in 2010, when there was no Women Water Forum yet, but there was this first roundtable on women and water. And one of the main outcomes of that was that in future we would have Women Water Fora during the Water for Life decade. Whenever there would be a high-level conference in Dushanbe. Well, the first one was in 2000. Oh, I'm sorry for this. My clock is chiming. The first one was in 2013, which was back to back with the what was it? The I forgot now. It is the you see, this is what happens when the clock starts chiming. But anyway, in 2013, it was the year of International Water Cooperation. Now I remember. And because water cooperation is so essential, we gathered 150 women from all over the world, which came from different walks of life. And as you see in this picture, we had ministers sitting at the table together with women's civil society representatives from all different parts of the world. And they together decided on a way forward, which of course does not yield immediate result, but what it results in is a mutual understanding and a really subsequent cooperation at the national level. In the picture, we see the Minister of Water of Nigeria at that time, who was Sarah Ochekpen. She was also the president of the African Ministers' Council on Water, and the Minister of Water of Ghana, with colleagues from Africa. So you see, this type of things is what we could do in the Women Water Forum. And the next one was in 2015, and I included a picture. Corinne, I don't know if you know that one, but we sat together in the evaluation of the decade and what had been achieved and what were the challenges at the end of the water decade. Now, these first Women Water Fora, they were really concentrating on the Rio Dublin Principle 3, which means that which states that women play a central role in the provision, management, and safeguarding of water. For those of you who are maybe not from the water sector, the integrated water resources management was the agreed United Nations member states approach to how to manage, how water should be managed. And it's guided by 4 principles. The first one is basically on sectoral integration, that water permeates all sources, all aspects of development and of life. And it is a finite and vulnerable resource, so you have to connect across disciplines and sectors in society. And the second and the third principle was about societal integration. Second principle reading that water development and management should be participatory, involving users, planners, and policymakers at all levels, which means that you, before doing anything, you have to go down to the appropriate level of intervention. And the third one is what we are concerned with here, that women play a central role in the provision, management, and safeguarding of water. The fourth principle is about the economic value of water. And unfortunately, at that time, it was interpreted a little bit wrongly, in my view, as privatization of water, which was never the intention, in my view. It was just to state that water has an economic value, and that provision does come at a cost. We have to acknowledge that. So back to the Rio Dublin Principle 3. which means that women play a central role in the provision, management, and safeguarding of water. The principle not only states this, but it outlines the enabling environment that has to be created to make that a reality on the ground, saying that this pivotal role of women as the providers and users and guardians of the living of water and the living environment has seldomly been reflected in institutional arrangement for the development and management of water resources. The acceptance and implementation of this principle requires positive policies to address women's specific needs and to equip and empower women to participate at all levels in water resources programs, including decision-making and implementation in ways defined by them. It's a mouthful, but it's very essential because it states that women really should be enabled to participate, and not only on paper, but that in practice, this requires quite a bit of effort. If we relate this Dublin Principle 3 to the SDGs, it particularly relates to SDG 6 in Target 6.5, which talks about the achievement of integrated water resources management, and of course then the Target 5.5 in the gender goal, which is about ensuring women's full and effective participation and equal opportunities for leadership at all levels of decision-making in political, economic, and public life. Now, that's what we were aiming for during this Gender Fora in the Water for Life decade, but what has actually been achieved there? I looked at my previous presentations and I found some summary of the policy-related achievements of this decade. I'm not going to go through it in full, but basically at the UN level, gender mainstreaming has really worked. Everybody has a policy and a strategy. And also in major international fora like the Global Water Partnership Intergovernmental Organization or the African Ministers' Council on Water, there are these gender strategies. In AMCO, thanks to our common friend Corinne Maria Mutugamba, who has unfortunately died some years ago. And also in terms of women civil society engagement in the water domain, this was strengthened considerably, both by international networks that emerged, but also by strengthening the national and subnational women's organizations in their own communities to really work. And thirdly, the leadership of women ministers in water, notably in Africa, has really supported the work of civil society in those times. But of course, like always, considerable challenges remain. There was a recent review of baseline study on the IWM target in the SDGs, and it showed clearly that the objectives lagging behind were the gender objectives. The scores are generally low, and quite a few countries consider gender not applicable to water management. There was also the 2021 UN Women Progress Report on the SDGs, which indicated that 26% of the 170 countries reviewed actively pursue gender mainstreaming. That's just a quarter. And of these, 24%, another quarter has made some progress, while 50% showed few or no advances. And mostly because earmarked budgets are not in place, they're generally lacking. And if we go to the implementation level, where many good things are happening, then you see that a study of Juliet Willits and her colleagues in Australia showed that the integration of gender is hampered by the lack of appropriate approaches, particularly for non-gender experts who experience difficulties in implementing gender concepts into their programs of work and often lack the knowledge and viable entry points, including on how to engage the women in a genuine dialogue about the gendered impacts of their projects. So what can I say? I would conclude that the frameworks at the international level may be in place, but that when it comes to implementation, we are still have some work to do. In many cases, the international agreements have not yet sunk in at the national level. Often it's still business as usual there. And when it comes to implementation, the conclusion of the evaluation report of this first water decade, which I mentioned before, is still standing, although that was concluded in the 1980s. So, with the support of the government of Tajikistan, we continue our efforts into the current Water for Sustainable Development Action decades. And we have Women Water for All again. The first one was in 2018, in which the Royal Academy of Science, you see Princess Nisreen presiding here, was a co-organizer. And it was called very clearly the Bridging Voices to Action Forum, because it is the strong belief of the Royal Academy of Science and of Jansu Global, of which I am the co-founder, that we have to bridge voices to action. So we have to go from all these frameworks to real implementation and put in place the enablers for those actors, including the women in science, to really start working. The Bridging Voices to Action incorporated the theme of women in science for water already, and ensured that the multi-stakeholder debates were informed by contemporary scientific knowledge. It started this process of problem-oriented and transdisciplinary research, which connects academic, public, and private spaces, and which continued during this high-level event on February 11 in 2022, which Princess Nisreen kindly talked about, and where the Jansu Site platform was launched. All of this is very much, if I may say, at the policy level, because that is what these forums are about, to create an enabling environment for all of us to work. To do the work itself, it is mostly done in the interim periods. But these fora, they provide the international commitment, the engagement of governments, like Princess Nisreen also said, if 53 member states, and in addition, the African Union and the European Union sign and endorse the outcome document that we as Women for Water have, Women in Science for Water have cooked up together, then this means that there is a commitment and that we can start working from there. Now, the next Women Water Forum will be in Dushanbe in June, and it unites women scientists to support women to address water challenges in their communities. It is about women in science for water in society, about equity, diversity, inclusion. Water unites us. And the reason why we are here now is to invite you all to be part of that and to help us to make this very nice frameworks that I've outlined to you a reality on the ground by us as scientists and practitioners connect to women's civil society on the ground, and together sort of encourage the governments and international organizations to provide the means to move forward. So a lot of work ahead of us. I look forward to talking to you with you about this a little bit more and to your questions. And I hope that we meet in Dushanbe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alice. I really appreciate, first of all, that walk down memory lane. I do remember that, but also just the context, as you say, for women in water, starting way back with the Dublin Principles and to where we are now, thanks to people like yourself and Princess Nisreen. So really appreciate that. I'd like to invite both of you to join me, because I do have a couple of questions following on, and you actually provided us with some great challenges, but it's really clear both of you are passionate about women and girls in science and also about water. You've worked extensively with women and girls around the world, and you've shared some of the programs with us, Your Highness, and also Alice, some of the high-level frameworks that are occurring and that are being included in UN systems. Your Highness, you also noted that we need to rediscover our own stories with water. And having grown up on the coast of Wales, I completely agree. It's the sound of the waves really is part of my story. But I want to ask both of you, how else can we as a community that cares deeply about the inclusion of women and girls in water sciences and water social sciences better support each other? How then, in your words, Alice, do we bridge voices to action locally amongst our peers on the ground here? So I don't mind, maybe Alice, we'll start with you.
I will start, and I think
Yes.
for sure Princess Nisreen will have to add something to that, because we cooked up all these Jansu global ideas together, and with your help, of course, Nisreen, of Corinne, for which I appreciate it very much. Well, for me, the main problem is the thing is that there's so many good initiatives going on, and especially women, as I have learned through my long involvement with women's groups from all over the world, different civil society groups, ranging from academic women to business women to the grassroots women, everything. And they came all together in the Women for Water Partnership, as you may remember, Corinne. But the problem is basically that we all work in silos, basically. Also the scientists, if I look at, I'm a biologist, and since I came from ethology, which is about the evolution of social behavior, that was my point. I a little bit, and ecology was a theme that very much interested me. I a little bit combine, let's say the natural science, technical side with the social science, sort of like soft side. And talking to you, Nisreen and both, and also Corinne, also showed me that we have to sort of make a 360 analysis. We have to create multidisciplinary teams that together address a specific problem. So what we try to do with Jansu is that you provide the science-based sort of platform to acknowledge and to see where is the appropriate level of intervention. And then the analysis of the specific problems at that stage has to be done by multidisciplinary teams, and make sure that the technical solutions. I mean, I gave this one example in a pre-conference chat that I saw that in the European Union there has been an audit of the water and sanitation projects that were done with EU money in sub-Saharan Africa. And then they found that technically all those projects, they were perfectly in order, but more than 50% had not reached the intended beneficiaries. And of course, it's easy to say that this is because of corruption, but it's not the only reason. The reason is that this pre-investment in the socio-cultural dimension, in making solutions appropriate, the most technically viable, the most technical solution is not the most viable in every circumstance. So you have to combine, and you have to make tailor-made solution, which is basically why we started with Jansu's side, and many of the contributions of your Women in Water lecture series has pointed in that same direction, that you have to look at the specific socio-cultural circumstance, combine it with the technical knowledge and the analysis of policies and everything, and combine all of that into the appropriate solution for that circumstance. And that is what we are trying to set out to do. And you cannot do that on your own. Princess Nisreen can't. She can make sure that the governments listen to us, and that so many countries and so many governments endorse the outcome documents and say, okay, we are willing to work with you. Then we have all these scientists with their knowledge, which I don't have. I'm awed by the knowledge that is out there. And then we have this intermediate connecting neutral platform, which we call Jansu, which we hope will help to bring those things together. Because that's not the role of scientists, it's not the role of the governments, it's the role of an independent intergovernmental organization that can make that connection work, and that can use the influence to provide the means which we need. Very often, and you know that, Corinne. I'm sorry, I'm talking too much, but this is my last point. My last point is on the financing, right? That very often, if you look at what donors provide, which from their perspective might be a very good entry point, but it does not really cover these complexity and needs, especially in science. I cannot tell you how many scientists, also during the February 11 intervention, you know that you have been in all these deliberations, have said that basically what they are forced to do if they want to get the financing is not what they know is really necessary to make a change. And I hand over to Princess Nisreen to continue on how she sees that Jansu Global and the work of Razit should provide that. Sorry for talking so much, but you got me started.
No, I completely agree. And Princess Nisreen, yes, please, on Jansu and on Razit, but also on how we as people, as part of this community, how do we support each other better to include or to increase the inclusion of women and girls. So please, the floor is yours, Princess Nisreen.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, you can tell this is why Alice and I are together in Jansu and we started this initiative together and developed this initiative together. And Alice is a great treasure, she has all of this knowledge, this background, and she also has this great vision and the way to see things and to connect also the dots. So my dear sister, friend, and colleague, it's a pleasure to work with you. and Dr. Corin, welcome to our club of Jansu. Well, we need to look at things. I will look at things from different angles as an executive director of Razit and also as a woman in science myself. First of all, we need to see why we didn't achieve a lot in the issue of women and water. When you speak to so many agencies, and I would say whether it is UN agencies or other international community organizations, etc., the first thing you hear, water is not on our agenda. Will you believe it? Water is not on our agenda. So if water is not on their agenda and they talk gender equality, but what kind of gender equality we want? This is one of the things like we need to look at gender equality or equity, diversity, and inclusion from a wider vision, from different angles. But first thing, water is not on their agenda. Women and water is not on their agenda. The second thing that if you look at it, women specialized in water fields are not present in international community. They are present, their presence is only for certain meetings, like Dushanbe, for example, where they are all heard in Dushanbe. But Science, Technology, Innovation Forum, they are not heard in it. High-level political forum, they are not heard in it. Finance for sustainable development, they are not there. Economics, etc., etc. So that's another issue. That's why we couldn't achieve a lot as we want from looking at Alice's presentation, and also to encourage girls, to think about water sciences as well. The other thing is that as a mentor for girls from different parts of the world, I see that when you speak to girls, they think about science, life sciences, medicine, genetics, biology, or engineering, civil engineering, or computer engineering. But they don't know the water-related sciences, because they don't have that information. Who is on the social media, who is always appearing, the women specialized in water sciences are not there. I'm not saying they are not there completely, but we are not as we supposed to be, speaking. So the last thing is supporting water-related research and science. Water-related research and science, this is very important in order to keep going for women specialized in sciences. This is another issue. Now, how to move forward and how to create much more, like development into our situation, women in science for water and society, whether it is through Jansu Global, Jansu site. We need to show our presence. Okay, we brought this amazing political commitment from member states and the European Union and the African Union. Incredible, but what is next? It's not just a commitment, but we need to keep going and to speak to the governments to show that what can be done to connect women together. And this is through Jansu site. It's not about only recognition, but it is much more about implementation, transformation. It is about education, popularization. I don't want to keep hearing that women carrying buckets on their head, but rather we want to bring the successful stories, from Corinne, from Alice, from everyone. We need to bring these successful stories to encourage people to see that water really is very important and touches them, and they can do more and they can participate more, etc. And also we need to bring that water is related to every business on this world. I keep saying this, I was speaking to about water in one of those big investment conferences, and I don't know why they invite me. Honestly, I'm not into finance, but maybe my title and my achievements attract these people. That's okay, but here I am, the voice of people in these conferences. And I was talking about the importance of water in reviving economy, in the importance of water for sustainable development, etc., etc. And one of the honor of one of the most famous companies in the world, without mentioning any name, he said to me, "What we have to do here with water?" I said to him, "Sir, your company is based on water. Without water, you won't sell anything 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And he was surprised. He did not realize that much water is very important to his business, that made him from, like, in every corner you see his business. And this is what we need. Like when you say a biotechnologist, why we need water? Banks, etc. Why do we need water? So we need to bring our voices as well as women in science for water and society into higher, very much higher level. So I'm sorry if I sound a bit ambitious, but we need to look at things from different angle and to step far beyond, to think far beyond than Dushanbe, and to think far beyond than just our institutions.
Thank you very much. I couldn't agree more. And especially, obviously, Global Water Futures, we are a large multi-university with over 1,000 researchers and highly qualified professionals, and undertaking research about water in cold regions. So absolutely hear you on the need for research, for water and water-related research. And it's also, as you say, definitely about the messages. And I would add that we're at a critical turning point, I think, for women's economic empowerment, for health and security around the world. We've had COVID-19, political instabilities have exacerbated these inequities and highlighted the essentiality of water, not just for the private sector, as you pointed out, but especially for women and girls. So thank you both for not just your time today, but for leading these fantastic initiatives and committing to visions for women in water and in society moving forward. And I'm pleased and proud to be part of what I hope is going to be a really large and successful and more ambitious programs. So thank you very much. I'm going to hand over to Andrea because I see there are a couple of questions in the chat and we've got a few minutes left, and then I'll leave it to you to close. But thank you again, Your Highness, and also Alice, thank you very much for your time.
Yes, thank you so much. This has been such an insightful conversation, and I want you to know that the chat is filled with appreciation from the audience around the world, and so many people giving you the clapping hands and the warmest congratulations and just appreciation for this conversation. And with that in mind, we have a couple of questions about, just how can women really more practically get involved in participating, in either the Dushanbe Forum or in supporting Can-Su Global. What are there things that Canadian women or women around the world can do to actually get involved and to support your work directly?
If I may start answering, yes, maybe. Well, one of the tools is, of course, Can-Su Site, and Dr. Karin can tell you more about it, but it is an emerging platform of women water practitioners, not water in the sense that they have to be water scientists. They can come from every walks of life, but they see the centrality of water. They want to look at their business through a water lens. And this platform is open for people who want to join it. And from there, what we want to do is basically, of course, time is very short. The Dushanbe Forum is already in June, so we cannot involve the whole world with all different cases. But what we were thinking of is that if we look at Dushanbe is located, Tajikistan is one of the Central Asian countries. And there is this Central Asia Women Leaderships Forum, and they have very much been on the forefront of the water and sustainable development agenda. So we try to bring from each of the Central Asian countries a concrete case, which we then would like to debate with Can-Su Site members in Dushanbe, either physically or long distance through this medium, if need be, to really develop concrete programs that we then want to bring before the governments of those countries. So it is a starting point of showing how different the science community, because we strongly feel as Can-Su Global co-founders that whatever solution you take, it has to be science-based, science and research-based and evidence-based. So we really very strongly rely on the science networks and the research networks that provide the enabling environment. It's a critical enabler to make projects work. And we try to find the financial means and the platforms to do so. But the core is that you need different types of scientists who have different knowledge and different understanding to help concrete challenges on the ground to move forward. Because it's a little bit abstract, but I go back to these Dublin principles. The Dublin principle 2, it says that you have to involve all of those things, but at the appropriate level of intervention. What we see very much from my decades of experience is that this sort of like identifying the appropriate level of intervention, it's often just skipped. People start doing projects and implementing all sorts of technical solutions without first looking at the 360 analysis of what is really appropriate. So we want to provide the knowledge and integrated science and research and analysis for informed decision making. Then once you have identified what is the real core problem and what is the appropriate level of intervention, that is when you start to build the partnerships and guide the implementers through science into their implementation. And this is basically the work that we want to do in the next Women Water Forum. So if you think you have any knowledge that might contribute to that, sign up with Can-Su Site and let us see whether we can connect. And it's not only us, it is exactly what you said, the expert list, the work that the Women and Water community in Canada is already doing is basically the same, only we take it more to the implementation level to make the applied research a reality. Because otherwise it stays within your own community, but we want those women on the ground to benefit from it and to know, to get in touch with the right scientists, with the ones that can really help them forward, and then leave it up to Princess Nisreen and myself to get the governments and the other agencies on board. And no, I don't know whether this makes sense, but basically that's it. We are at a turning point, as Corinne also said, very much into this point. We can really start implementing, and we need accelerated implementation in order to make the difference for those who are, for our own generations and for the next.
That is fantastic, and I think Laura has kindly put the Cancer Global website in the chat, so folks can ask it there. Maybe Princess Nasreen, I will ask you a different question to end on. You'll have the last word. That we have a question saying, that Canada, like many other countries in the world, is also lagging behind on our implementation of women in water and gender impacts of water. And so, do you have any advice for governments at the national level, for example, or for not-for-profit organizations, academics? What can be done on the highest levels to accelerate our achieving the gender and water targets around the UN Sustainable Development Goals, for example?
Well, thank you very much indeed. Now, as we need first to bring in, we women need to bring into the minds of society in general, men, boys, girls, and women, that why women in science for water and society. That this is not to benefit only women, but it will benefit the whole society in general. That's one thing. Sorry, excuse me. Sorry. And also we need to bring like a concrete vision based on each local government, then go regional, then national. Last February, after last February, we received so many thank you letters from governments and ambassadors. Even so many people, civil servants, did not realize how many women in water sciences are existing in their own countries and how much work they are doing. Okay, we brought a small number because, and even the length, everybody was talking about the length of the event, 11 hours. But it was worth it, and they want to continue with this. In all water, whether water is the oceans, whether water is the drinking water, etc. You see, so what we need here is to bring women much more into international community, into national community, into local community. Like, for example, I live here in the city of London. I will go and meet as a woman specialized in water related fields. We, the group, will go and meet with the mayor of London. Then we will present our agenda. We will work together. Then from that city, we will go to another city, to the national government. And it has to start within us, number one. Number two, we need to think about how to bring good practices into other places, considering the social aspect and cultural dimension. So this is very important. Like Corinne and the team are doing amazing work. We need to bring this work to other places. But how? To educate the locals, as Alice mentioned, etc. The last thing I think we need to consider expanding our selves, like by thinking about we need women specialized in arts to join Jansu site, women specialized in music, women specialized in sports, women specialized in literature, humanities, in acting, and name it, from all different backgrounds, women and men. So for us, we need to think about, to bring all these voices. Because for me, as a scientist, when I speak technical language, you know. However, to attract the attention, sometimes you need of the public, or to speak their language, you need someone specialized in journalism or in media or social sciences, or from that part. You know what I mean? So we need to come together and to redefine science, you know, because science is not a STEM, it is not social, it includes arts, humanities, and every discipline in life. It is related to science. And science touches our daily life. So women in science for water and society. That means that our solutions will go to the whole society. It's benefiting not only women, but the whole society. Number one, to start taking initiatives to speak to our local governments and national governments, and as well to work together. The last thing is about the we mentality, not the I. If we want to succeed, it has to be the we mentality, you know, the ownership for everybody. Like whether me or Alice or Corinne or Andrea do the work, it's fine as long as the work is done. It is we did it. We complement each other, you know, and this is what we need to think about. So I hope that it was brief, but
Thank you so much. It's absolutely wonderful to hear your answers and your presentation. These are the things that we've been thinking about all season long and in the previous seasons. And I know that I believe Corinne has just put in the chat the virtual water gallery, because we have a wonderful art initiative led by postdoctoral fellow Louise Arnall, and it's just absolutely fantastic. And so I know we have to conclude here because of the time, but I would like to say, you know, if there's anything that we can do to support your work, to elevate, to connect people attending today with you, please reach out, and we hope to do that on an ongoing basis, because you're absolutely right. It is the we, and it's all of the people here who are attending, who are doing these things in their countries, and we want to be able to connect each other. So thank you so much to everyone who has attended today and attended throughout the season, because it really is the group effort that will make a difference. In addition, if you have not yet signed up for the Women in Water expert list, I hope this is giving you the push for why your expertise is needed. And so please take the time to visit the Global Water Futures website and register, and we'll be in touch. And as Princess Nasreen mentioned, you know, it's thinking about expertise in the widest possible sense, you know, business, technology, entrepreneurship, arts, entertainment, education. We all need to be part of this. So I think that's a really important point that we will be keeping in mind moving forward. And finally, I would like to thank, of course, all of our technical staff, Laura McFarland, who has done an outstanding job this season in keeping the technical side of this going, Fred Ryben for all of your support on graphics, and our closed captioning from National Captioning Canada, and Brittany, who is joining us here today, and Mariette Benoit and Ronald and Yolande, who have done the French interpretation throughout the season as well. It takes many, many folks to bring a day like this together. And finally, I know that many people from around the world are also joining us in what is a holy month of Ramadan. And so I would like to wish everyone Ramadan Mubarak, who has taken their precious time to join us during this important time. Thank you all again, and I look forward to seeing you at Women in Water in 2023.